Hi, this is Tate, and today we're going to be talking about another part of our Pinewood Derby series, how to graphite your wheels and how to set the wheels on the car really easy, and then how to weight the car. The most important thing we do, weighting the car, hands down. Listen to this video. Okay, so first off, let's scroll down here. So our wheels are very important. We use a good quality graphite. Like I said, my favorites are Hobby Lube, the Maximum Velocity, and the Zero Friction from Derby Dad for Hire. It's my favorite. It's the fastest out there. Maximum Velocity I've won a lot of races on, and I've won a lot of races on Hobby Lube. Stay away from the rest of the guys. They're all junk out there. Some people say they're all the same. They're not. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our wheel, we're going to shove our axle through and put it just like that, and we're going to put it on our hand. We're going to put graphite in this little hole. There's a little cavity in the Scout wheel. So the Boy Scout wheel, or Scout wheel nowadays, is just filled. I fill it full and I tap it. So I'll just sit there and I'll tap it. It's a little easier to do when it's outside the car. You can put them on the car, doesn't really matter. And I tap it and then I spin it. And I get it up to full speed and I let it spin down. I do that about 4 to 5 times. Then I come on the outside every single time as I'm switching, so I do that once and then I go over. I put a little underneath the actual axle head in between the car. I spin that and I do the same thing and I spin it. So it ends up being spun 10 times and I let it spin all the way down to nothing. Please do not put these on a drill or on a Dremel and spin them way up high. These are plastic. They can melt if they get going too fast. And you only have a few runs before the car is run out of graphite. So we want to go ahead and do that. We do that, we spin it, we get it on the car. We want to make sure where the axle hits the car that we graphite the living daylights out of this spot. We want it to be nice and black. One thing I always try to do beforehand is I'll put, make sure it's completely dry. That's really important. Is I put a little piece of super glue, a little dab of super glue on there, and I wipe it across so it soaks in right there and strengthens that spot. I've had these axles break out, especially if you're using the axle slots. I've had them snap right out of the car when they fall. So if it gets hopped off the track or anything like that, so I put a little piece of, just a little bit of super glue, I wipe it across with my finger just to get it soaked in. I hit it with a little bit of the activator spray and it seals it right up real quick so I don't have to worry about waiting for it to dry. So one of those things. Now once we've got the wheels ready to go, we take our back axles, are our 2 best axles. So we spun them, we sit there and said, okay, these are the ones that run the best. I put those 2 on the back. My next is my front wheel. So the 3rd best wheel is going to be my front. That axle turns down. So that is going to be the axle that is facing downwards. And if you can see it on this car here, this front axle turns down. The 2 back axles should be facing up because you've already drilled your holes in your car. Okay, so that's really important. Now once you've got this done and you've got your axles all the way in and basically ready to go, I push them in nice and easy. I don't push them in finally until I've done a tune. So we don't do that quite yet. We just get them into place. It makes it a lot easier to weigh the cars. So what we do, I like having 3 scales. And this allows me to be able to weigh the car. The front scale, I'll tell you right now, totally pointless. If you get a block of wood in there, I do not think it's as big a deal as everyone makes it out to be. I first start by taking 1. I put all my car on there, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take a 2nd block, I'll put it on there, get it on there nice and straight, because this does screw up the scale, the weighting, if you put it up there and you don't have this quite weighted on there. So if you want to weight it perfectly, put a block on there, hit tare so it's dead on straight. We're going to go ahead and set the car on top. We get our 5 ounces by loading our weights. We're just going to set them in there and load them up until we get just under 5 ounces. I like 4.9 ounces, 4.90. You can go as high as 4.96, but it is way easier to remove weight than add weight. So just keep that in mind. So once I've got it up to where I think where I'm pretty close to that 4.9, I can always add a little bit more weight once I get to the track and I've weighed them. Now the scales we use, I like these scales a lot. This is the ones we use for all our competitions. I take a 500 gram weight and I actually calibrate all my scales before I get started. This is really important, that way you know yours are perfect. And then I have a 5 ounce weight that we weigh in between each car to make sure it's still reading 5 ounces. Now for us, what we're going to do is we're going to put the dominant wheel here is going to be, before it's on this side, on mine it's always the right side, and then we flip it over and we put it down onto the scales. Now what I'm trying to do with this, I'm trying to get as much weight as I can in the back. So I take that 4.9 ounces and I put it all the way to the very back of the car. Now if it is a car that is running on round weights, so these are tungsten rounds, this is what I started out using, they work great. I can drop them in the back and I just fill them up, and usually the first 2 rows filled up is pretty good. And you make a very fast car with these tungsten round weights. Debatable on whether, but pretty much I think the faster cars are done with the cubes. So these are 1/4 inch cubes. I put a row of 12 across the back and then I fill in the rest as needed. Now for this particular car, what I'm trying to do is weight the back axles so they're even, so there's the same amount of pressure on both sides. And what I mean by that is that I want it to be even, okay, on the scale. So they're going to read, 65 grams. Okay, and that allows me to know that my back axles are taking the same amount of weight. Now the way I do that on this particular car, you'll see here, is I put all the weight as close as I could here, and then I actually move the weights over to the side here. Now once I did that, I was able to kind of get them where I wanted them, so they were basically balanced. And then my last thing I do is I take the car, after I've weighted them, I'm going to put them on a tuning block here, and I have a little mark. This one happens to be 3/4 of an inch in front of the back axle. So where the back axle, I measure up 3/4 of an inch. On a car like a ladder car, you can go even more aggressive. You can actually put your weights all the way across the back, and a lot of guys do that. That's totally fine. The more weight you get to the back, the faster the car's going to go. This is kind of the design we went with this year, which was trying to balance the weight out a little bit more. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to try to balance the car right on that mark. Now if you can see this, that mark is exactly where the car's balancing at. That allows the car to not wiggle as it goes down the road. If it's too far back, you're going to have a wiggle. If it's too far forward, the car's not going to go as fast because there's not much weight in the back of the car. A couple tools I really like. This is a tool for putting in axles here. It's just a pair of pliers. I can grab onto the axles, I can twist them if I want to straighten one out or if I bump one or something like that, but it also allows me to be able to pull them in and out really easy. Now, the next thing is going to be tuning your car. So remember, we want to sit there and really lube up each wheel with as much graphite as we can get in there. The more graphite, the better. If you get to your place and your car's completely clean, you're not going to win. You want lots of graphite. I always recommend, like I said, my rules are always graphite because it's easy to do, hard to screw up. The more you add, the better. And then making sure you're spinning and breaking them in. Once I get to the race, I'll usually try to run the car 2 times down the track. That's it. Now in our races, we're not allowed to add graphite. If you do add graphite, you need to go ahead and either run the car a couple times or spin up the wheels and let them spin all the way down. Now you can see this is a wheel that was perfect when we first started, and you just saw a little bit of a wobble in there because these tires have actually ran, several races they were in. So this particular year we had a bunch of ties, so these cars probably ran twice as much as what they normally did. So these would definitely have to be relubed. Now once we've done that, we're all set to go. We've got it ready to go. Put it off to the side and don't worry about it. It's where the race is. Now the other way, if you don't have 2 scales, what we recommend doing is doing that 3/4 of an inch. You can go back to 5/8 of an inch if you're using the cars that have the ladder design. When you get into a car more like this, the regular Scout type car, I think 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch of balance is where you want to be. I usually like about 1 inch. It does a really good job of 1 inch, and it causes very little wobble, and the cars tend to be really, really fast. And if you, like I said, you don't have a way to balance out the cars, just go ahead and put them across the back and use more of that balancing of the car, the actual balance versus where the weight are balanced between the two axles. So that's kind of how we do it that way. So we're all set there. Next will be tuning your car. This is a really important video, but definitely weight placement, more important than anything else you do. Make sure all that weight is as far back as you can get it, and really no farther than 5/8 of an inch on a ladder car, and no further up than about an inch. So if you're in that realm, you're in good shape. Like I said, a Scout car, 3/4 to 1 inch. A ladder car, 3/4 to about 5/8 of an inch. Now, one thing I did here to kind of balance out and get my cars to run a little better this particular year was I put one weight up front, and I'll tell you, I think this was a detriment to what was going on. I should have put that weight in the back and made my center of gravity just a little bit farther back. These cars, I think, would have went a little faster. This particular car that had all the weight in the very back, that one ended up winning. These other cars that had the little weight up front that I more balanced it up to that 3/4 of an inch, ended up getting second and third. So is that a big difference? Hey, is a win, a second and third a win to you? Maybe. We like first place. So we want to go ahead and have those cars win every single time. All right. And the last thing you can do is once you've got all your weight in there, you can actually put another second skin